Thanks for listening to the AZ Wildcats podcast. I'm your host, Mike Luke. Now joined by Mr. John, aka Portland Timbers. Now we're gonna get into all the background on Mr. Timbers, but if you're on Wildcat Authority, you know this. This man is a superstar, and I'm not going to kid around. I think I speak for everybody on the board when I said I thought he would probably be about 55, and he is not. You're looking at him right now. His spreadsheets, his detail, his knowledge. Portland Timbers, hello, my friend.
Hello, Mike. Happy to be here and wish you under a little bit of better circumstances. And so I wanted to pass along my condolences to the Shear family, of course, and also say the one thing I know about this community is the fact that we always have each other's back. So happy to be here.
Absolutely. Now, Jason Shear, if you haven't seen, his father passed away, so he's not going to be on the show, obviously. Going to probably take a few days off for himself. But again, like we always talk about on this show, this is sports. This isn't real life. The toy section of society. I will continue to use that phrase because every now and then I say something that I think is smart. And what I need to do is I just need to reemphasize that, because if there's like four things and you just reemphasize it with passion, then sometimes maybe people can be tricked a little bit. But yes, like I said, all thoughts go out to him. Now, Mr. Timbers, you and I, like I said, nobody's more dialed in on Arizona football. But I want to ask you this. Arizona has its offensive coordinator, Seth Doege. Not Doge. Doege. I got to be honest with you here. I like the hire. I've been very hard on Brent Brennan, very hard on this coaching staff and everything, but call a spade a spade. I like Doege. I think he's a good hire. We're going to get into the details, but when this broke, what were your initial reactions, my guy?
Yeah, I posted on the board. Positive thoughts. I almost had to pinch myself because it's almost difficult to poke holes in this one. I mean, if you think about the situation, it's difficult to say, oh, there's an ideal hire out there. And if there was an ideal hire out there, are they really going to be tying themselves to Brent Brennan when, he may be a lame duck? But as far as hires go, this one is impressive. And I think, at the start of this, I was saying I wanted an up and coming offensive coordinator. I wanted somebody who knows that they need to succeed at Arizona this season, or else, they could limit potential opportunities in the future if they're not having success. So it obviously checks off that box, but checks off a lot of other boxes too. I mean, recruiting ties in Texas, recruiting ties in California,
Arizona
has been around the country, but in a good way. He's well regarded everywhere, and he's coached quarterbacks and tight ends. Obviously the air raid background, but it's even more impressive to me about the air raid background is pairing that with a top 20 rushing offense, which is extremely impressive for a first-year play caller. And then last thing I want to say is this sounds like a negative, but I mean this genuinely as a positive. Marshall sort of struggled at the beginning of last season, and then they rattled off 7-8 wins. So that tells me is that he's able to adapt and improvise and figure things out on the fly, which obviously he's going to have to do this season when you're installing a new offense at Arizona.
Now, I think you hit the nail on the head. Kevin, if we could pull up the Marshall, the stats from last year, I think this is something that's very interesting. So 31 points per game, 380 yards, 181 passing, 201 rushing. Now, if you look at his bio, you look at his background, Doege's going to want to be somebody that's probably going to want to throw the ball. But when you look at him and what he's been able to do, he looked at it and he said, we got to run the ball this year. I love coaches like this that can also look at, they know what they want to do, but at the same time, they can look at it and say, man, we've got to figure out a little bit of a different way to do this. As we're going to get into, there was an odd quarterback situation here, which I'll let you explain. But I love coaches like that can look at their roster and say, okay, I'd prefer to do this, but this is our skill set right here. It shows me outside the box thinking that you need in the year 2024.
That's what's fascinating is I can't tell with the small sample size whether or not what they did at Marshall was more personnel driven or his schematic identity. But if you think about it, the new quarterback came in about a third of the way through the season, and I compared it to a JDL Noah situation where you had
very much.
Yeah, their previous quarterback, a guy by the name I think of Stone Earl, comes in, doesn't really do much, throws interceptions, fan base is out on him, gets a little banged up. New quarterback comes in, does well. Coaching staff isn't willing to give him the benefit of the doubt, naming the starter. Old quarterback comes in, again, not successful. A little different than the JDL situation, but eventually they put the Braylon Braxton back in and they rattle off 7 straight wins, go 10-3, win a bowl game. It's just a weird parallel. But what is sort of interesting to me is the quarterback run game was a real emphasis with Marshall last year. I mean, and it wasn't like, oh, plays breaking down, we're scrambling, getting outside the pocket. I mean, they were pulling tight ends, pulling H-backs for quarterback runs. And there were times where Braylon Braxton was running more times per game than throwing it. And so you think of air raid, that's not air raid. And very curious to see how that affects Noah Fifita and, how Arizona chooses to handle that, or if it's just something that he looked at with his personnel and moved forward with.
Can we call it the run raid possibly? I'm going to steal that from the chat. I kind of like the run raid.
I like it.
But I am curious, though, like I said, now looking at what he can, let's talk a little bit about Noah Fifita here. You look around, and I think a lot of people, the market for Noah Fifita, I want to hit on this here a little bit here. It's fascinating. It's fascinating to me because he's maybe not as good as he was his freshman year, but he's certainly a lot better than he was his sophomore year. I'm going to go on record and say that I think the market for Noah Fifita at Arizona is probably exponentially higher than it is at other places. I think if Utah hadn't got Devin Dampier, obviously Utah is a very natural fit. But if I'm Noah Fifita now, I've obviously got a lot of questions. I mean, we're going to go position by position. You can have all your spreadsheets out for that one because I'm going to be relying on you for that stuff. But when it comes to Noah, though, all of a sudden I'm taking a different look here because I at least know that I've got an OC that's called plays before and at least appears to know what he's doing. It's a low bar, but it's a bar that you still cleared.
Yeah, and I'm curious if there's any sort of relationship there. I know Seth Doege was at USC in 2021 when, the height of Noah's recruitment, not saying that USC was recruiting Noah, I don't know, but he was recruiting Kean Burnett. So he obviously knew Servite High School. So I'm curious if there's any relationship there. But I have a question for you. Do you think if Noah transfers, that means he knows already which programs are interested? And I ask that because if you're a quarterback, a guaranteed Power 4 starter, and you choose to leave, there's risk involved, right? Like you have to know you're a starter.
There's a massive amount of risk involved. I think you have to know in this day and age. Now, I always love people. I always get these putzes that'll be something like, they'll be like, well, you can't contact everybody contacts behind the scenes. It's just the way it is. Everybody contacts. So you're going to have an idea, especially somebody as dialed in as the Fifita family. I mean, this isn't like Mike Luke hitting the transfer portal and being like, I don't have no clue what I'm doing. They're going to know what they're doing. The other thing too, is that Noah, and I think this is very clear. And our guy, Michael Nitkowski. By the way, Michael Nitkowski, to show you what a fan base you have here, Mr. Timbers, Nitkowski generally listens after the show. He said on the boards that he was going to be listening during the show. Exactly. Heart emojis, salute emojis, all of that. But Noah Fifita likes Tucson because if he didn't like Tucson, if he didn't like being here, he probably would have been that first one out the door. I thought it was very fascinating what his father said, too, about how we want to see who the OC is. We want to go through it. This is not a kid that I think wants to leave Tucson. And, he's a loyal dude. It's going to be fascinating to see how this one plays out. Plus, I believe his market here, this is just my opinion, I believe he can get paid more here than he can get paid anywhere else because of where Arizona is and the entire roster makeup that you got. What do you got there, Mr. Timbers?
No, that's an excellent point. I think about it. Like, do you think Noah's best value, his best attribute is on the field or off the field? I mean, think about faces of Arizona football right now.
Right.
It's Noah Fifita and who else?
And Noah Fifita and Noah Fifita and Noah Fifita. It might be Seth Doege at this point as number 2.
It's Jose Amalo.
Oh no, we're gonna get into our D-line coach, our favorite. But that's a great question. And the thing about with the Noah as well is that people want to play with Noah. Absolutely. Because again, when you watch Noah Fifita, after every single game, it's my fault. It's I didn't do this, I didn't do that, whatever the case may be. He never threw, and I'll be honest with you, man, I'm far more petty. It would have been very difficult for me to say, well, I mean, we had a whole season where we had an offensive coaching staff that's basically admitting they didn't have a plan. But everything was always, take it on the chin. That to me is big. And so now let's talk about a little bit about, or go ahead, and then we're going to talk about how we could fill this one out.
Well, again, it's just back to, Noah Fifita is the only cultural foundational centerpiece that exists in Arizona football right now. Like the roster is blank pretty much, leadership transfer, maybe people come back. Right now it's Noah Fifita. I think Noah would also look us in the eyes and say, last year didn't meet his standard, I'm sure.
No doubt.
I mean, whether it's his fault, partially his fault, not his fault. I mean, he wasn't seeing the field great at times. He was throwing interceptions he probably wishes he had back. If you were just completely objective and, removed all emotion from it, you could say, hey, Arizona could potentially upgrade the quarterback performance from last year to the next season.
No doubt.
Just based on what happened. But you have to absolutely factor in the fact that Noah Fifita right now is the face of Arizona football. And like you mentioned, people want to play with him. I mean, I don't think it's a coincidence he's hosting recruits, whether he stays, whether he goes. People want to play with Noah Fifita, and people wanted to play with Noah Fifita in the past. So,
right.
I have no reason to believe that won't continue.
Okay, now we're going to talk about how we can help out Noah Fifita in these parts. But first, got to pay the bills. Branded bills. All right, Mr. Timbers, have you ever had branded bills? Have you ever worn a branded bills hat?
No, I need one for the summer. Right now it's winter, but
I was going to say, well, you know what? When you're up in the cold Northwest, sometimes maybe you need a hat when the summer hits, though. But here's the deal, though: head to Branded Bills and use code PHNX for 20% off your first order. You could get maybe a pretty cool little U of A hat right there, or something like that, or anything up there, but just to keep the head warm up in the. What's the weather there? What's the weather there right now?
I don't know weather up there. I'm in Salt Lake, but weather up there is probably cold and rainy.
All right. Well, yes, at least not smelly and rainy. But when it comes to Utah as well, check it out. Maybe get a Utah Branded Bills hat. Head to brandedbills.com and use code PHNX for 20% off your first order. Also, have you ever heard of the Gila River Resorts and Casinos?
I have.
Everybody get the wave going. Come on. It's time to get the wave going. Come on. Oh, that's a much better wave. Let's see that wave again there, Mr. Timbers. Let's get that wave going. Woo! All right. Yes. Gila River Resorts and Casinos. A fun and immersive experience. We have no waves in the chat right now. This is pathetic. Come on, people. Step your game up. Come on. No waves still. All right. They're coming in now. Either way, check it out. You can see it from I-10. Gila River Resorts and Casinos. A fun immersive experience. Gambling, food. I mean, heck, they even got a Topgolf there. The question of Gila River Resorts and Casinos is, what don't they have? I think that's a bigger question. Either way, check it out. Also, get the wave, Gila River Resorts and Casinos. You'll thank me later. Fun and immersive. Oh, by the way, look at some of these. Look at Back the A-Ray with like 10,000 waves in there. That's big. That's big alpha energy right
Inspiring.
there. Yes, it is inspiring. Okay, now let's talk a little bit about helping out Noah Fifita. Transfer portal stuff. This is also where Mr. Timbers is amazing. I steal a lot of your information. Sometimes I give you credit, sometimes I don't. But you are about to see. Let's talk a little bit first about the skill position players, and then we're going to go to the line, which I think is everybody's biggest concern. Go ahead. What do you got?
I mean, visitors, it's difficult to tell how much Arizona is in with some of these guys because the visitor list is pretty impressive, like almost shockingly impressive if you think
it is
what's going on. But I mean, best name on the list, Fluff Bothwell, South Alabama. Dude's super impressive. I mean, he's a bad dude. I think he was a freshman last year, 832 yards, 13 touchdowns, averaged like 7.5 yards a carry.
As a true freshman.
Exactly. Has some Jonah Coleman in him. I think he's a little bit taller, a little bit less stout, but with more breakaway speed. But he just dudes don't want to tackle him. Offers from everywhere, but it's visiting Arizona. I mean, Alonzo Carter.
Let's talk Alonzo Carter for a second here because, listen, I've been very, very hard on this coaching staff. I don't really have, and we're going to get to the Y song here in a second, I don't really have any problems with Alonzo Carter, and I get people who are like, oh, the running game was mid last year. Well, let's be honest here. It was supposed to be JCM. Quali Conley is a fine backup. I have no problem with that. I think Kedrick Reeseno's got some ability. What say you?
I mean, I love Rieseno. I think he's going to be awesome if he stays eventually.
Yep.
I mean, his ceiling is so high. But my question is, what do you expect from the running backs when your delayed handoffs are just asking for linebackers to come and take you out a yard behind the line of scrimmage? I mean, I want to see what Rieseno's yards after contact were because he was getting hit at the line of scrimmage and getting 3-4 yards.
If I'm not mistaken, when he hit the portal, I believe last year, and tell me if I'm wrong, that was your top. That was the dude you wanted over basically everybody, if I'm not mistaken.
Absolutely. I mean, put it this way. He was essentially a true freshman. He played only on special teams at Ole Miss. If he had come in as a true freshman, he would have been the 8th highest rated recruit in Arizona history.
Yeah, I
Put
mean,
it out there.
that you don't get a lot of dudes like that. That's where I like the portal though too, because it's like one man's trash, another man's treasure. I'm not calling him trash, but Eric L. Day has joined here. Nice of you to join us. You already missed the wave, Eric L. Day. Okay, now another thing too is you look at some of these guys that Arizona's in on and who they plan on visiting. It's really a testament to Alonzo Carter, Wayshawn Parker. Let's talk about them. Wayshawn Parker, Washington State. First of all, it feels weird saying that they're not in the Pac-12 or the Pac-10 anymore. But so I'm looking at this. This dude is 6 foot 195 or whatever, 800 yards, 6.5 per carry. Looks like an NFL type back. You look at his school list. Probably not going to end up here, but they're getting him on campus. I mean, that's something that you got to give him a lot. That's a huge testament there.
Yeah, Northern California kid. I believe like everybody on the staff was recruiting him at San Jose State. So I actually felt pretty good, like all things considered.
Right.
The visits. Utah just hired his running backs coach from Washington State, and Utah is his last official visit. And he's got USC.
What's the word up? What's the vibe on the ground up there? We got boots on the ground, Mr. Timbers. What are you hearing?
I've got nothing right now, but what I would say is, it feels like the Utah visit was scheduled, I think, before they hired his coach.
Right.
I mean, it kind of feels like it's heading that way. I'll just be real, but I mean, again, if there's anybody who can pull off, a recruiting heist over USC, Utah, UCLA, the only person on staff I trust is Alonzo Carter.
Yeah, 1,000%. So I'm at the point, and Sheer and I have been talking about this, and tell me if I deserve to be slapped for this or not. I don't think I do, though. I am at the point, though, with Alonzo Carter, I'm not going to ever really worry about the running backs. That's one of the few positions on the team I don't really worry about. Another one, too, Eli Sanders, 800 yards at New Mexico. I think either way, I think Risino is – I hope that Risino earns that spot because I think, like you very eloquently put, that's the dude. But there's going to get another guy in there that can play. It's not going to be a situation where it's essentially somebody like me out there or something. They'll find somebody else. I don't have any concern about that. And
the good part about running backs is they know that they're going to be splitting carries. Like you can't survive a full season not splitting carries. So they'll probably add two guys. I mean, I expect them to add 2 more running backs, and I expect them to be good. I mean, just judging by the names that are on campus already,
right?
They're going to land someone.
Yeah. Eric L. Day, you're doing very good things. We were kidding with you. Risino is great in NCAA 2025. He is. Okay, now let's talk about the wide receiver position. To me, this was the one unit. Listen, everybody knows how good T-Mac is. T-Mac, I don't care what the record was. T-Mac is the best wide receiver in the country. But nobody emerged outside of one player at the end of the season, Mr. Timbers, and that would be Chris Hunter. I like Chris Hunter a lot. I hope Arizona can keep him because I think there's a lot. Some guys look different than other guys. Chris Hunter's one of those dudes. Sheer and I were all wrong on Jeremiah Patterson. We kept waiting for the breakout. It never occurred. But there's also some other guys that I think are kind of addition by subtraction, and this is with all due respect. Montana never did anything for me. I never saw that. But you got to bring in a lot of wide receivers here because right now Chris Hunter is the only one that I think you can look at and say, all right, that's clearly a power 4 starter type talent. Obviously, you're probably going to get Luke Whitesong out of New Mexico, 900 yards. I believe his girlfriend goes here, but hey, that's Portland Timbers type looking at right there, though, looking way into the background on why these guys might come here. I
mean, it explains that performance against Arizona, doesn't it?
Doesn't it? Yes, yes, it really does. It really does. Hey, my girl's in the stands. Watch this, guys. But this unit's got to be totally overhauled, in my opinion. They got to get a bunch of different dudes, and I think it's Mario Mesa, the great Mario Mesa. I think he said there's a lot of good running backs and there's a lot of good wide receivers. So you should be able to cobble something together, in my opinion, on those, Mr. Timbers.
Yeah, that's the one position where there's sort of like I want to say an excess, but there's, heavy supply of good wide receivers in the portal. The thing that's interesting to me is outside of Wysong, they've got a couple guys coming onto campus, Dean Patterson from FIU, Joseph Williams from Tulsa, who I don't know if he makes it to that visit. I mean, this dude has offers for literally, he just got offered by Michigan. He's got offers from literally everyone.
Right.
I mean, I find it interesting if he would end up on campus. We'll put it that way. But they're chasing, the big fish in the transfer portal, and they got to land them. I mean, and the other thing is, Luke Wysong. I think Luke Wysong's great, and honestly, he might even be a better asset as a kick returner. I think he's got like 2 punt return touchdowns.
I had no clue about that because generally, like when you look at like you're like, oh, white guy, probably this, but
Sneaky
yeah,
athletic,
no, he
right?
could return it, yeah, for sure, no doubt.
No, he's legitimately athletic. I mean, he's awesome. My concern with the staff is not. I mean, they're getting guys on campus, and their high school recruiting was better than I thought it would be. To be honest with you, I mean, even they lost guys. I get that, but it was better than it could have been considering the circumstances. My problem is what they're asking these guys to do. Like Luke Weissong is very versatile. He can play inside, outside. He can do a bunch of different things, but it'd be a good pickup if we ask him to be Luke Weissong. It's not going to be a good pickup if we ask him to be Jacob Cowing. You see what I mean? Like,
yes. Oh no, dude, 1,000%. Again, that kind of goes to playing to some of your guys' strengths and having an identity about having an identity going into the season. Like I said, when it comes to running backs, Dennis Walsh, the great Dennis Walsh, flying around over in his private jet. Mom will probably join the chat here sometime the next couple of weeks. We'll get him on, but or get her on. But we need to have people on here that know about football, and that's why we have Mr. Timbers. Okay, so running back, wide receiver, I think that they should be able to get enough. I really do.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now let's talk about the two elephants in the room here. First of all, Sam Olsen. I mean, listen, some people think of Rob Gronkowski when they think of Sam Olsen. I think Brent Brennan's one of those guys. I do not see that. The tight end position, I'm very curious how it's going to be utilized next season in this offense.
I'm fascinated first because, there's an interview with Seth Doege before Marshall's season where he talked about his tight ends coach. I think his name, maybe John Miller, forget off the top of my head, is his right-hand man. He knows everything about the offense, helps him do everything. Do you think he takes this job if he doesn't have a position for his right-hand man?
That's a great point. That's a really, really good point. And you would certainly hope so. Oh, Kevin Thomas wants to join the chat. Hello, Kevin Thomas.
Yeah, I just wanted to add into what John was saying. Seth Doege is a guy who's coached tight ends before in his past. Like, you think he's taking this job if he doesn't have a solid either tight end room or plan for a tight end room?
Oh, it's a great point. And I know they had a tight end on campus last week who, to be completely honest with you, went to Oregon State, went to Cal, didn't do anything, was a blocking tight end. I expected him to commit because it was his only offer, and Matt Adkins, seems to have some sort of connection. I haven't heard anything since then. Kind of makes you wonder. The other side of that is, like I mentioned earlier, Seth Doege recruited Kean Burnett to USC, and not only recruited him, Kean Burnett committed to Seth Doege to USC. Does that bring Burnett back into the fold? And also, his system relies on the tight end. They need a tight end in the formation because that's what allows them to be a running team with the air raid, because you have to account for the tight end in the passing game. You have to account for him in the run game as well. Right. So they need tight ends. And the fascinating thing is, I don't know who they have interest in. I don't know what's going on with that position. Since the Cal kid was on campus, it seems like it's all quiet.
That's going to be an interesting one to follow. So that is one of the elephants. Let's talk about the other elephant in the room. But before we get into that elephant, we need to talk about something else that's also very important. All right, Mr. Timbers, you're a young buck. Have you ever had a NUTRL?
I may have indulged once or twice.
Oh, very, very good. I could tell it. Very, very good. NUTRL, my friend. NUTRL. Now, you might see the people in the chat. I think the question for these people is who hasn't had a NUTRL, because these are very, very smart people. But just like our good pal Kevin L. Thomas, it is from St. Louis, Missouri. So again, check it out. Here's the deal, too, with NUTRL is that, and hold on, let me get the disclaimer in here. Hold on. This is great live stuff. Okay, with NUTRL, there it is. Keep it tasty. Enjoy responsibly. 2024 Anheuser-Busch NUTRL flavored vodka and carbonation. St. Louis, Missouri, the Archway City. Check it out. Also, chicken and pickle. Chicken and pickle. Have you ever played pickleball, Mr. Timbers?
I've not.
Tommy Lloyd has played pickleball. He is a pickleball player, and I am assuming that he also likes chicken wings as well. A perfect little concoction there. Go to Chicken and Pickle. You might even see Kevin L. Thomas up there, or the lovely Erica L. Day, or who knows, maybe you'll see Ben One White. But with Chicken and Pickle, the great thing about Chicken and Pickle as well is that it is, like I said, it's just a fun time with Chicken and Pickle too. Head to chickenandpickle.com to see all the fun you can have at their Glendale location. Chicken and Pickle making Glendale cool. All right. I think one of my biggest problems with this coaching staff this past season was the offensive line. Now, listen, I understand that you I still believe if you inherit 3 very high quality offensive linemen, no matter when you take the job, you should be able, no matter what, to at least put together a passable unit. And that was not done. Every player you added was bad, was not playable
Horror,
whatsoever.
like abject horror, except for Deuce, but they didn't add him. So
yeah, he was already here. But
Yeah.
I mean, and Deuce has a little potential, so I like, I'm cool with Deuce.
Yeah.
But everybody else, from Ryan Stewart was awful. Michael Wooten was awful. You couldn't play. They couldn't even put Jonah Rodriguez on the
put
on the
Shenko.
field.
Shenko started games at New Mexico. They couldn't even play him on the field.
Exactly. And then that to me was a big indictment that you've got a generational guy in a Jonas Savanea. You got a Wendell Moy who was getting 3rd-round grades from scouts coming here. Josh Baker, the epitome of solid. And you couldn't cobble together anything. And on top of that, you compound it by going with delayed handoffs. That to me was one of my biggest coaching issues with that entire roster. What say you, Mr. Timbers?
I mean, let's put it this way: like Rhino, Moy, Baker, Leif, got hurt, but then Deuce, and then Big Jonah. That's not bad.
Not at all.
Like there are worse. We've seen worse offensive lines. I'd argue Fish's first offensive line was. I mean, they were playing Peyton Pierce. Like it was way worse.
Pierce, I had forgot about Peyton Pierce.
But honestly, I mean, we'll get into the transfer portal. My question is, if I was an offensive lineman, why am I not entering the transfer portal? I'm not just talking about from Arizona, but literally anywhere. And think about it this way: there's a kid coming onto campus next week, I think. Tristan Bounds, 6'8", 305 from Michigan. He's got Power 4 visits lined up, and you think like 6'8", 305 from Michigan, best offensive line probably over the last 4 years. Like awesome.
Right.
Kid hasn't played at all in 4 years. Like his only film, his only film is field goal unit or special teams.
You know what it could be like? It could be like BBN. People were like, oh, well, BBN couldn't play at Georgia. I don't care if he couldn't play at Georgia. We're not Georgia. We're not Michigan. I'm okay with that. I will take that. That's exactly right. These are the kind of players that we need to be looking for, Mr. Timbers.
And he's going to get paid.
Yes, Edgar.
He's going to get paid. It doesn't matter where he goes. But the thing that's funny to me about this is the fact he has not played basically since high school. You get him onto campus in spring. He could be Trent Williams or he could be Joe Bourgeon. Like you have no idea who this kid is or what he can do on the field. But Power 4 schools are lining up to take guys like this. And I'm thinking, like, why wouldn't you enter the transfer portal? But the flip side of that is, who are we going to get in the transfer portal, right? Like if we're competing with Power 4 schools for a kid who's never played.
Right. And on top of, hey, we do have something to offer we have guaranteed starting spots to offer. We have nothing on the offensive line. That would be my recruiting pitch. I would say, listen, you come here. Listen, you might not get good coaching. Who cares? You can start immediately. Being buried on all those crummy Michigan teams over the years. Come here and you get all the play that you want. That's my recruiting pitch. I bring in nothing about the coaching or player development. I just say that.
And it's going to work for somebody. I mean, they're going to bring in bodies. They're going to bring in warm bodies. And it's almost scary, right? Like they're going to bring in people and you just have absolutely no idea what they're going to do.
Yes. Now, Michael Nitkowski says, and I agree with you, Michael Nitkowski. Michael Nitkowski, very smart man. Went to Flowing Wells, won't hold him against him, but it is what it is. I think Rhino and Deuce will be starters. I would assume so. I've seen enough from, what's interesting about Rhino as well, and it's too bad that he got hurt because you can tell, like, Rhino is another one that, like, when you watched him in camp, and again, take for what it's worth in camp, it is what it is. But Rhino moves well. Rhino's big. There's just a lot about Rhino that looks the part. And I just hope he's not somebody that's always injured. But
Raymond Polito 2.0.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, kind of. But but there's a lot to like about him, though. He intrigues me.
Oh, absolutely. I think his issues last year were not talent-based, they were experience-based. He just he had no experience. He was being thrown in the fire, but like physically he was holding his own. I mean, I was watching it live here in Utah against Utah's defensive line, which is one of the best in the conference, one of the best in the country over the past few years, holding his own. Like that's promising.
Right.
It's the coaching.
Right. Yeah, it's the coaching, and that's where we kind of get into. You know what's weird about too with coaching, and we're going to get to another coach here in a second that I do believe should be off the staff. I'll let you. I know you've got some points on that one as well. But with Oglesby, obviously Brent Brennan really likes him, but I'm always fascinated too where, and so did Tucson 93, I would imagine it's Danny Gonzalez. We'll get into that later. But with somebody like, I get that you like Oglesby, but at some point, if you have such a bad season with talent, how am I expecting you to be better with less top end talent? That's always what I kind of go back to with some of these guys.
I'm just confused. Like, I feel bad putting Oglesby and Sayamalu into the same category because I think there's different reasons why there was different struggles. I think Oglesby schematically caused a lot of the issues. I don't know what Joe Sayamalu does. Like, he can't tell you what his philosophy. At least Oglesby could say, well, we're pulling guards because we want to, get the block set up, and that's why we have the delay handoffs. Like, I disagree with it, but sure, you can explain the reasoning.
Right.
Jose Amalo can't explain his reasoning. So how am I supposed to expect that transfer portal players want to come play for that? Like,
right.
I don't understand. I don't.
All right, let's get to the guy that we really want to talk about here, and this is Joe Samalo. I put this out on the page because I had a bunch of people ask me. They're like, "Oh, Mike, give us specifics." I don't want to give specifics, but I was beaten into giving specifics. Joe Samalo is wildly unpopular with players, with people that he has to deal with. Again, I'm just going to give you a couple examples of players, and then we will go backwards from there. With you have Big Bill Norton, who is light years better than Chuba May, and you have him locked in a competition. That's like having me locked in a competition with Big Bill Norton. And you have Russell Davis thinking he's a middle linebacker or something when he's here. You're just going to offend people like this. This is stupid. You ran off your two best linemen. That can't happen, Mr. Timbers.
Well, I've been on the record multiple times on the board saying I think they whiffed on pretty much every evaluation. I mean, I personally am a big Chase Kennedy fan. I don't think he was necessarily a hit, but he was probably one of the only guys who exceeded expectations. However, what I think gets lost in the missed evaluations is role allocation. They were asking people to do things that they couldn't do. And the best foil for this, prior to the 2023 season, Fish goes out, lands CO. They say, CO, you're going to play 20 snaps a game. You're going to be a short yardage guy. You're going to play goal line. You're a 330-pound run stuffer. Do that, and we'll have success. And I'm not saying CO is a world beater. We're not thinking like CO, amazing. But we're like, yeah, that was a good addition. It helped the team, right?
Right.
Compare that to this year, and they say, Chuba, you're our guy. You're going to play 50 snaps a game. 8 plays into a drive against Kansas State, he can't even move. He's too gassed.
Well, right, and then you got him on like punt return coverage, and yes, but again, here's where I think this coaching staff really misevaluated. I think they just looked at Chuba and they're like, well, and again, I don't want to turn this into beating up on Chuba, but that is what it is. It's, he's a Division I athlete getting paid. Chuba can't move. That's the problem. I think they were looking, they're like, oh, he's 6'3", 395 pounds. Chuba can't move. That is my problem with that, is that how did you watch this guy all spring and say, yeah, Norton, yeah. And that to me was just a massive miseval that just makes no sense at all.
And they compounded that with not supplementing that room with anybody who could spell him, right? Like if Chuba was just playing goal line or like short yardage, he's probably somewhere like, yeah, that's a useful player. But then you go out and add Kevon Darton, who got pancaked by a TCU wide receiver. You add Stanley Tafoe, who I think was like okay, but he's not an every down interior lineman.
That is Stanley. He wasn't bad, but he's depth. He is not somebody that you want as a starter. Lost Highway, you're totally wrong on this. BBN is also just BBN plays at Texas. He was on their biggest goal line stand of the season against Texas A&M. Can you imagine Chuba playing at Texas? And that's with all due respect to Chuba.
Well, see, here's the thing. He said he takes up space. Well, that's what Bill Norton did. He took up space. Chuba,
yes.
I mean, he occupies space, but he was getting moved, right?
And the defense was a lot better when Big Bill Norton started playing last year as well. And just is what it is.
I mean, part of that probably feeds into Jacob Manu's regression when a guy in front of him who's 375 pounds and can't move is getting moved.
Yes.
I mean, it was a snowball effect. And so it's like, why are we compounding a bad evaluation by continuing to put him into situations where, I mean, again, Chuba only played 4 games, but it was very obvious early on that this was a problem and they had no solution to fix it.
Now, let me ask you a little bit about Isaiah Johnson. If Isaiah Johnson could stay healthy, I like him a little bit. I mean, he's got a little bit of quick twitch to him. He doesn't look how do I put this? He doesn't look he looks the part. I'll put it to you like that. And when you watch him, you see him make plays. He's another one. I just worry if he's going to stay healthy, but I like Isaiah Johnson.
But so this is where it's so frustrating because Brent Brennan in his press conference is like, yeah, every team was bigger than us. And before the season, they're like, oh, we don't care about, we can be
We just want to get
smaller.
upfield. That was their whole thing. We don't care about size.
And now you look at Isaiah Johnson, who I agree with you. I think Isaiah Johnson's good, but he'd be great if he was one of 6, not one of 2. Or in the case of this season, he was the only 300-pound plus guy, and he's never stayed healthy in his career. And so it's like, yeah, of course every team was bigger because we didn't add anybody who was bigger than him.
Yes, exactly. And at some point, that's kind of on, that was your strategy. And again, here's where I keep coming back to on this, and where it just blows me away. You've admitted this entire time that you had no offensive strategy going into the season. That's their words, not mine. When you're in week 11 and you're like, I don't really know what we're trying to do. Paraphrase, but that's
receivers are running wrong routes, and you're just like, yeah, it's happening.
Yeah. And then when he was asked about it, he said it's not just the receivers. Everybody's running the wrong way. Well, that's reassuring. Defensively, though, your plan was you didn't really care about that. You wanted to get upfield on the line, so you go with Chuba. You go with guys like that. And the other thing too that we're going to find out this this cycle, I believe. One thing about Jed is that Jed had a very, very good eye for talent. He was able to find guys, and again, he missed on guys for sure, but he was able to find a Tanner McLaughlin from southern Idaho or southern Utah. Yeah, you're next to the woods right now. Yes, exactly. He was an NFL player. He was able to get a CO in the last transfer portal to come in and play 20, like you said, 20, 25 snaps, whatever the case may be. A Taylor Upshaw comes in, last transfer portal, gets 8. He was able to find guys that maybe some might have been stars, but others were always quality depth. And I think that's something about that Arizona team in his last year that we didn't really see around, is that you had 8, 9 guys on the D-line that could all play. Maybe not NFL dudes, but they could all play.
It goes beyond defensive line. I mean, Martell Irby.
Right. Oh, great point. Great example. And then, I mean, heck, even on the O-line, finding a Wendell Moy, finding a Jonas Avenay, I can keep, going on and on. This is where this coaching staff, they're going to have to make their bread and butter on this. They're going to have to hit the ball out of the park with evals. Yeah,
it's a double-edged sword right now because the roster's empty, right? They have an opportunity to shape the roster exactly the way they want to look like. Right. And the thing that Jed was really good about, and I know complimenting Jed at this point is...
But he did a lot of good stuff on the field. We can all... If you can't admit that, you're just a putz.
He had a prototype for every position of what he wanted somebody to look like, and that allowed versatility so that when you have an injury or you have something, there's somebody you can plug in, or different situations, you have different guys doing different things. I mean, at this point, again, it's a completely clear roster. We'll see what happens with defensive coordinator. I'm not super optimistic about it, but if you want to frame this positively, like, they have a chance to just completely clean slate and try to build up.
And again, that's, and we're going to talk about what we want to see next year, but that's going to be interesting. Okay, now let's talk a little bit about DJ Williams, another one. DJ Williams. I mean, you were just able to get guys, and these were last transfer portal, like the very last window before the season. And like everybody in the comment is saying, you've got, when you can just continue to go with a Tyler Manoa, a Tia Savea, a CO, a BBN.
And they're not outstanding. Like, these are good players, but they're role players. They're just doing their role. And that's exactly what we didn't have.
That you didn't have really any of that. I mean, that's all right. Let's get to the linebackers now. Listen, Jacob Manu, this is going to be an interesting situation. Sometimes I don't know exactly what to say about Manu because his first 2 years here, he was a stud. I always thought when he came back this past year, he looked out of shape. Like he had a little bit of a kind of a belly. Obviously didn't have a great season, ended up getting hurt. Tay Brown showed some improvement. You've lost obviously other depth as well. Where are you at with the linebacking unit?
Linebackers, I think, frustrated me.
Yeah.
And it's part of the reason why I'm a little pessimistic about promoting Danny Gonzalez should that happen.
Yes.
I mean, first off, there was an opportunity to add a transfer portal linebacker, and, for various reasons that fell through. But the last second, they add a guy like Jared Small that doesn't play a single snap.
Right.
Tay Brown, cool. Like, he exceeded my expectations. I wasn't the biggest Tay Brown fan. He did better than I expected.
I expected nothing from Tay Brown,
Yeah.
so I'm the same. The fact that he did a couple things, I'm cool with.
But the rest of the linebacking unit was so unplayable. You had to put Dalton Johnson there.
Right. Yes, exactly. That to me is that. So you got to overhaul obviously that entire unit, and you have to get players in there that are good.
Yeah, yes. I mean, they have a visitor this week, a JUCO kid, and I mean, I've taken my soapbox out on Wildcat Authority about JUCO kids. I mean, it's not to say that there isn't talent in JUCO, but I could rattle off Cyrus Durham, John O'Price, Demetrius Freeney, Keanu Miloto, Joe Borjon, Charles.
This
Yates.
isn't 1992 where you can probably find a couple good guys in JUCO. It's just a totally different era right now. Yeah, I saw that post. You were spot on. If you're banking on JUCOs, like I was banking on with Jeremiah Patterson, you might end up with the wrong end of the stick.
I mean, this kid, I think his name's Kyle Firm, something like that. I mean, he looks physically ready. I just don't know how that translates, and I'm skeptical whenever we expect a JUCO player to translate. Now, they did offer a kid from Montana, Riley Wilson, who, for me, like the best way to explain what I saw from him is solves problems with aggression, and it's like a great thing. Yeah, I don't know his offer list is Arizona level, like Houston, I think maybe like Oklahoma State, like schools like that. Like it seems as if Arizona has a chance at him.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know about Danny Gonzalez's recruiting because in the transfer portal, the first transfer portal window, when he came in, he didn't land anybody. And the recruiting class coming in for his position is not, there's nobody coming in to immediately play. We'll just put it that way.
Right. Well, I mean, because you lost a guy like a Sean Robinson, who no matter what, I think Robinson was somebody that you could have seen being kind of in that hybrid role. You don't, like you said, you don't really have a difference maker or somebody that's long on talent that you could maybe coach up. The other thing that I don't get about the Danny Gonzalez thing is that, listen, the linebacking unit was terrible. The special teams unit was terrible. So you fail upward to become the DC? That still doesn't make a ton of sense to me.
Well, I mean, if Brennan's going to say like, oh, we're evaluating everything, how can you sit there and evaluate that and then promote a guy who, I mean, you just mentioned it. I get the argument that he was a good defensive coordinator 7 years ago, and that's true. Like, I can see that, absolutely. But look at what has happened since. I mean, his New Mexico teams were awful defensively, and we just saw last season, the position struggles when he says, oh, Jacob Manu is the best linebacker in the Big 12, and then 4 weeks into the season, Jacob Manu is grading out as the worst player on the team. And maybe, it's not his fault, absolutely. And, credit maybe to him for developing Tay Brown, but how can one of your best defensive players regress to that extent and think, let's promote his position coach?
Well, that's kind of where I'm at a little bit with the staff, too, is that I look at people like a Wendell Moy. I look at people like a Jacob Manu, and I just see such massive regression. I mean, Manu especially. I mean, we all know Manu can play. And like you said, Manu, before he got hurt even, outside of a couple moments, Manu looked terrible. I mean, and this is a guy that's been a very cerebral player. This is somebody that, was, looked like he could have been an All-American after his sophomore year. At what point is maybe some of that on the coach, or the player, but at the same time, there's a lot of regression going on. That's what's concerning to me.
And I don't even know. I mean, if he were to come back, which he's not going to be cleared until fall camp. If he's going to go to somewhere to start in his last year, he needs to start, right? He's got one more year.
I almost wonder if he's going to reg. I almost wonder. I would almost kind of, because he's probably not an NFL player, obviously. No. So I would almost like take him if I'm a school saying just get better, sit out this year, because like you said, a guy that was already kind of out of shape coming off an injury like that, you're probably not going to get Jacob Manu next year.
And from an Arizona perspective, even if he were to come back, you have to add in the transfer portal, like significantly, because you can't bank on him being 2023 Jacob Manu.
Yes, exactly. Now let's move on to the secondary. But first, I've been telling people this from day one, and I agree with it. Listen, if Arizona doesn't have any good offensive linemen, why not just put up 5 Sanderson Fords and just say, listen,
yeah.
I mean, I don't understand why people wouldn't do that. Why would you just not put up 5 Sanderson Fords and say, listen, you need girth, you need strength. Guess what? Sanderson Ford is all of that and more. Yes. Now, let's see. If Eli Sanders commits, he is officially Eli Sanderson Fords. Yes. But just put up 5 Sanderson Fords, and you know what? You're going to have to go around. They might move like Chuba, but they're also built like Chuba. Hey, maybe move Chuba to the offensive line, but they got girth. You got strength. Check it out, though, Sanderson Ford, and they got great deals at Sanderson Ford right now as well. Sanderson Ford, get your new 2024 F-150 truck with 3.9% APR financing for 66 months, plus up to $4,000 cash back. Similar savings on up to over 900 new and pre-owned vehicles on the lot. Sanderson Ford and Game Time. Now, listen here, young buck. Yeah, if you're going to a concert or you're going to a game, you might want to check out Game Time. They can help you out. They can get you in there. You might want to consider it. Just saying. Should give it a chance. All right. Yes. Now, again, that is called agreement. But either way, check it out with Game Time. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time picks. Download the Game Time app. Create an account and use code PHNX for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code. Download Game Time. What time is it? Game Time. Ooh. All right. The secondary. Everybody's gone. How do I put this? Everybody outside of, I think, MGK, everybody is gone. Genesis Smith's still here. We'll see how long he's here. But Takeover Davis, he is entering the transfer portal. Gunnar Maldonado, Traden Stukes, Dalton Johnson. I guess my concern with this is that I think Brent Brennan thought that these players were going to come back. If somebody like me knew they weren't coming back and was told this from somebody, I don't know how he didn't know. That to me goes back to understanding your roster, not knowing your personnel. But this is going to be a total overhaul, a total rebuild. The spitter left as well. So you essentially have MGK and maybe
see
Genesis.
His visit list?
Yeah, no. Hey, let's talk about that for a second. Emmanuel Carnley is visiting, like, isn't it like Miami and Michigan and like
rumors of Miami?
Yeah, I mean, what am I missing here? Like.
I mean, he's 6'3", he's long, and got toasted comprehensively towards the latter half of the season, to the point where we couldn't play him in the UCF game because it was too bad.
It was just too. I don't get that one at all. But this is, you talk about another situation where there is going to be a lot of playing time to be had there, Mr. Timbers.
Do you think Gunner's going to transfer? I think Gunner shouldn't transfer because back to the Jacob Manu point, and I don't know if the medical red shirt is a red shirt. I don't know how it all works, but he has to go win a starting job coming off a knee injury. And do we think he's like, let's just say like Texas, he's not good enough to win a starting job there?
No, he's not. He's not. He's a bit player at Texas. I mean, he is like a guy like a Stukes. If he's fully healthy in the nickel,
absolutely.
I think can play anywhere.
Yeah,
I really
absolutely.
do. Takeover has always been a little bit overrated, but there's talent. You could see where, Yeah. But Gunner, to me, I agree with you, man. Gunner, to me, is the fascinating one there because he is the epitome, and you talked about it before the show. You got to be smart with how you enter all of this. You got to be smart with how you, what you do there, because you could end up getting left out in the cold.
Do we think he's that much better than Jack? I think it's Luttrell, not Luttrell. Luttrell. Do we think he's that much better?
No, I actually like. We'll just call him Jack. I like Jack. I think Jack was actually a good pickup for every Owen Goss. It seemed like there were every 4 Owen Gosses. I liked him. Now, it was funny. One guy said on Twitter, and it's kind of true. He said all of his interceptions literally were thrown right to him. But at the same time,
got to make them, right?
You got to make them. I was going to say Takeover Davis would have had 50 interceptions if that was the case. So I do like that. But man, this whole secondary, you talk about being able to push playing time, Mr. Timbers. You have got a lot of playing time to be able to push.
They got a lot of defensive backs, I think, visiting. Christian Ellis from New Mexico, Javion Cole, our old friend. Right. Still follows me on Twitter for some reason. Michael Dansby, who I'm a little iffy about, from San Jose State. You never like to hear someone say he got shredded a lot when referring to a corner, and that's how. I mean, San Jose State fans forever, whatever you think of them, warned us
Right.
about Sam Olsen, and we went, eh.
Yeah.
So if they're saying that, maybe there's some truth to it. I don't know, but
Yeah.
they've got guys on campus.
Yeah, they got guys on campus. That's going to be interesting to just see how this plays out. Now, so that's kind of a breakdown. Now, Mr. Timbers, I'm going to let you get on your soapbox here because I know you've got some thoughts on everything. Where do you want to start first, my friend? What do you got?
I want to talk about the social media. Brent Brennan. A credit to the staff for eventually, congratulating T-Mac and Big Jonah. Credit where credit's due. They eventually did it. I just think if you are a head coach at the University of Arizona and you're not leveraging every opportunity you can to evangelize for the program, you're doing a disservice to yourself. And the way I think about it is it takes 45 seconds to send out a tweet that is a congratulations, but also a recruiting pitch. And I think of this in terms of T-Mac. I mean, if I were in that situation, I would have said something like, T-Mac believed in this program when few others did, and now he's etched in the record books, and he's going to have his name up in the rafters. And not saying a recruit's going to come to Arizona because of that, but that pitch resonates.
Yes.
There are players that think I can be one of 100 at Oregon. The Oregon fans are still going to be talking about LaMichael James now,
right.
But in 10 years, we're talking about T-Mac.
Right, for sure. The other thing, too, that I find interesting about this as well is that, because you and I were messaging back and forth, and I'm like, can you believe they haven't even acknowledged that Jonas Savaiinaea has entered the NFL draft? And again, people beat me up for this. I don't care. I'm going to say this again. Look at somebody like Dion. Look at somebody like Dilly. Every single person that even enters the transfer portal, they're saying this is a great kid, a burner, just caught kind of in a numbers game, but he's going to kill it for wherever. Kids like that stuff. You literally have a generational talent and Jonas Savaiinaea coming through, because we don't get a lot of first-round offensive linemen to come through the U of A, and you basically and you just ignore it. How does this stuff not happen? And is there like a digital marketing firm or something? How are we in the year 2024 and they're not doing this?
I mean, and the thing is, it's so decentralized because now there's coaches analysts doing the hype tweets, and I was thinking even before the season, it was odd to me because in one dancing cactus gif, Jed Fish was increasing more hype around the program than Brent Brennan has done in basically his entire time at Arizona. And it's
exactly.
And to the point this season, people were saying, no one cares if you win, which sure, but if you're not leveraging every opportunity you have, you're not helping yourself out at all. It's a tool, right?
And this is simple stuff, man. It's
30 seconds.
This is rocket. This isn't rocket science, man. This is saying, okay, and then like you said too, the T-Mac one's a great one. Instead of putting out that, now again, I give them credit for actually trying. So again, we talked about the low bar. I give them credit for actually trying. But you have this AI put a photoshopped picture where they're both elongated and it looks stupid. I mean, again, it's a start, but
it's something. It's better than nothing.
But how do you not have something where you're like, T-Mac believed in this program when few didn't. Arizona doesn't get players like this to come through here. How is there nothing like that? That to me is just the baffling part.
I swear Geiska read my post on the board because I was thinking with Big Jonah, all you have to do.
Geiska hates me, by the way. Go ahead.
Well,
yeah.
All you have to do is say congratulations to Big Jonah, but frame it in a way of you can make it to the NFL by coming to the University of Arizona, right?
Right.
You could do that. And he framed it as, we had 32 or scouts from all 32 NFL teams. They're going to crush it. I was like, fine. But that should be the head coach's job. That's the head coach.
And again, too, that's why I always, yes, exactly. Michael Nikowski, be the next Big Jonah. Exactly. Say we got some playing time available here. You saw what this guy's doing. Come be the next Big Jonah. That's a very, very good point, and I think people would love every minute of it. So that to me is why I still, and like I said, I'm wrong on a lot of different things. I would love to be able to sit here and say, "Oh, you're not wrong on anything." Be nice.
I thought Shenko was going to be a beast. I was wrong.
Well, dude, yeah, it's 99-1, not 1-99. But if I'm wrong on Brent Brennan, I would love to be wrong on him. But I guess my thing is, it's just everything they do is just so. It's, you know what? And I know it's a cliche. everything just kind of feels mid-major. It just does from, like when I had him on, and again, he's a nice guy, but when I said, get out in the community and, you said it wasn't your job to, engage the fan base, and he's like, I never said that. And then I put the quote up there and I'm like, you said exactly that, coach. And he's like, well, what do you mean? Like go on a podcast? No, yes and no. But again, it's how, even if you've got an older guy or not old, whatever, if you've got a guy that doesn't understand this stuff, how do you not have somebody around him that understands this stuff? That to me is just the part that just gets me to this day.
I mean, if he's going to deflect and say, I'm going to leave it to the professionals, it doesn't seem like there's very many of those left. But also,
there's no staff.
Yeah. But I mean, I want to look at this glass half full. Like I genuinely do. I mean, we're all Arizona fans. We understand the reality. I want to give him the benefit of the doubt that he will learn, or he will at least try to figure things out. Those tweets are a start. Like, yes, they're starting to figure things out. I want to believe. But we're going to find out. We're going to find out very quickly. I mean, players are going to start committing in the transfer portal to be in classes in time for first semester. We're going to learn very quickly if they've learned anything.
Yep, we're going to find out very, very quickly. All right, Mr. Timbers, you knocked the ball out of the park today. We got up 270 lives. Very, very impressive. You're all right. Now, we need to get you again. One thing that you are lacking, Mr. Timbers, you need to have more of a social media presence, though, my friend, because everything you do on the Wildcat Authority message boards, you are hiding from the overall Arizona fan base. We need more of this on Twitter as well, my friend. I see you shaking your head.
Am I Brent Brennan? Do I need to do
better? No, you're not Brent Brennan. But unlike Brent Brennan, you're actually hiding a great thing. So we need to have more of this on Twitter. How about that?
Well, never say never, but social media is social media.
Yep, you're the man, dude. Very much appreciate you. Where can they follow you on Twitter, though?
They can follow me if they want to. You get to see a lovely profile picture of myself and Miss Timbers at the real JC22. But Wildcat Authority, UA Portland Timbers. Sign up for Shears Board. You'll see me there.
Yep. You are the man. This was absolutely fantastic. We will definitely have you on again soon. You knocked the ball out of the park. This was perfect. Very much appreciate it. Dennis Walsh put it best. Back the A, back the mic, back the Shiver Me Timbers. All right, my friend. Very much appreciate you. We will be back tomorrow, post-game Arizona UCLA. Hopefully Arizona wins, and we're talking about a victory. TTFN, ta-ta for now. For Portland Timbers and Kevin L. Thomas, I'm merely Mike Luke.
We all silly like the mayor.